found the gavel. Welcome everyone to the Park Cities Rotary Club. We're going to call the meeting to order, but before we do, I'd like everyone to stand up if you could and just kind of mingle with your neighbors and friends and meet some new friends and guests for the next 5 minutes. Thanks. Okay, everyone, let's take a seat, and we're going to now proceed to our invocation and pledge. So if you could take a seat, please. Richard Stanford now will be doing our invocation.
All right. Do we have any concerns? Any concerns we need to lift up?
I still want everyone to keep Alan Winnan in your hearts and prayers, please, because Alan has a very difficult struggle ahead of him.
And I believe Patsy Watson's sister passed away. There's a card out there to sign. Siobhan, Abraham, as you know, her mother passed away. Her funeral is tomorrow morning at 10 in Cox Chapel at Highland Park United Methodist Church. Any other?
Richard?
Yes.
I just, everyone, if you just, I know that everyone probably is, but just please keep the people of Maui in your thoughts and prayers. Many of you may not know, I actually went to school at the University of Hawaii on Oahu, and have several friends that still live on the islands, locals. A couple of people that we're still trying to track down that were working seasonally in Lahaina. So it's just a horrible situation. More than 1,000 people still missing, and it may take years to even identify a portion of those because of what's going on the ground. So,
All right, if you'd bow your heads. Father, we remember the people in Maui. We are concerned and lift up our prayers for Alan Wynn as he struggles. Today, like every Friday that we meet, is a day that we have the privilege of being together and reminding ourselves, as we will at the end of this meeting, that we stand for what's true, what's in the best interest of other people. That keeps it before us. But Father, add us also today one other thing to try to aspire to, and that is to be hopeful people. That's your gift to us, that we see joy and hope, because we know you created this world, you sustain this world, and though we struggle, we know there's a future because you are with us, and help us always in that understanding to be joyful and to be hopeful, and therefore to lead fruitful lives of service. We pray all of this in your name. Amen. Oh yeah, got to do the pledge. And we got the flags in the right order. They reverse them every week, but it's in the right order. So would you put your hand over your heart and join me in the our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we join in our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight on the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Richard. And now we will have requests for Happy Bucks. Anybody have anything they're happy about they want to distribute and give some money to our foundation? Happy Bucks? Anyone? Anyone? Going once, twice?
Happy Bucks.
Happy Bucks.
Oh, watch out, Richard.
Scurry.
Yes, sir.
First grandson was born last weekend. He's happy and healthy, lives in Virginia. I was out there to see him. They're doing well.
That is great.
Congratulations.
Any other Happy Bucks? Introduction of a guest. Any guest today?
Philip.
So I guess we continue to still enjoy the connections we make through the Park City's 4th of July Parade. Last week, we gave the Patriot Cup to the crew of the Rolling Elvi. We have a different crew here today. If I could get the dignitaries to stand up. We have a crew from the town of Highland Park. All dignitaries. This is Mayor Will Beetrell. We have Mayor Pro Tem Craig Penfold, Councilman Don Snell, and Toby Maples is a brand new town administrator for the town of Highland Park.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Sam?
Yes, my guest today is Katya Long, and I'll let you let her tell you something about her. So.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me, Sam, and everybody's so friendly here. I'm originally from Russia. I've been here for 20 years. I'm a lawyer here in Dallas, and I practice litigation, commercial litigation, as well as international arbitration, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you here. Yes, sir.
I'm Marshall Weaver. I was a member here from 1993 to 2014, and I'm back.
Hey!
And I'm retired at this point, so I can really devote myself to Rotary, so I'm really happy about that. It's good to be back.
Great.
Great, Marshall. Good to have you back. Anybody
Scott,
else?
Scott, right here. Right. Charlie, you have a guest? You said you have a guest? Oh, you don't? Okay. Okay, then. We'll now have Van Oliver come up and speak up to the foundation.
Thanks, Jeff. As you know, we have two foundations, really. One is the International Foundation, which Greg Pate does a great job, and I can't ever emulate him, you know, but emulate him. And then secondly is the foundation for our club itself. And each month we celebrate the birthdays of the members of that month and encourage them to make a contribution to the foundation. There's also a special award for those that contribute $750 or more in a given year. It's a medallion in the honor of Frank Monroe. And he, among other things, he attended 100% of the time, 35 years in a row of meetings. Oh. And so it's kind of an heroic achievement, I guess. So the members that have August birthdays, you know, it's you're either a Virgo or a Leo, and it means that you're friendly and happy, and you're a leader. And so those that have birthdays this month, if you would please rise, and we'll recognize you if you're here. Great. And it kind of reminds me of Kinky Friedman, who ran for governor a couple times, and he always had some clever remarks, and one of them was, what is the plural, as he pondered it, of y'all? Because I'm not from Texas originally, but I came down here and I've been trying to learn to say y'all really well, and of course the mayor, you know, can say very well because he's got a great Texas accent. And the plural is all you all. And so I just want to say that all y'all done really well with the foundation, and we're so happy that you're here. And so those are, I guess, the comments. And the foundation money that we have, you know, funds our grants to various charities and that sort of thing. And usually the charities that do receive the grants have some connection with one of the members of the foundation of the club. So those are my quick witticisms from Kiki Friedman.
Thank you, Van. And now Mark Neese, I'd like to have him come up and speak to Marketplace Advertisers.
Hello, everyone. So time for the marketplace advertiser for this week, which is past President Richard Stanford, representing C.C. Young. For those of you who don't know, C.C. Young is a senior continuing care retirement community with 450 residents at all levels of living. There actually are 600 staff, between full-time and part-time staff, for just 450 residents. Our member, Barbara Markram, is a chaplain there. They also provide outpatient rehab. My mom was a customer of theirs a few years ago. They took great care of her. The Point on campus provides education and exercise classes, entertainment to the campus and the community, including classes taught by UNT faculty. And they just finished celebrating 100 years in service. It's a great place. I would encourage you to go check it out. It's really great. Overlooks White Rock Lake. They're also have just expanded, building out the terraces, which is an independent living community on campus with all of the apartments overlooking the lake. So it's a great facility. I would encourage you to check it out and see how you can support them. On a personal note, many of you may not know that Richard Stanford is a YouTube star. Yes. So during the pandemic and a little bit after, most of you know, we streamed meetings from our studio, but Richard decided to produce, we produced about 17 episodes of a show that he did called the Stanford Digest, where he's reviewing books and different, historical events and things. And his Bonnie and Clyde episode is close to 40,000 views. So if you want, there's also an interview of both C.C. Colley and Hap Goodman that's part of that series. So if you want to check it out, go to our YouTube channel at Sync Lab Media, or just search for the Stanford Digest on YouTube, and you can see his great work on YouTube as well. So we have a star in our midst. So thank you, Richard, for sponsoring Marketplace.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Richard. Now I'd like to call on Mayor Will Betcherell to present a resolution to the Park Cities Club.
Thank you. I do have two of my council members here, as previously stated, Don Snell and Craig Penfold, and my new town administrator, Tobin Maples, who's been with us for 2 months now and has done a wonderful job of learning the Highland Park system. The parade you guys put on is the biggest event for the Park Cities annually. Everybody looks forward to it, and even you can see the number of participants that are in it and the spectators that line the streets 5 people deep. So it's a fantastic event, and we really, really appreciate that you do this every year for us. I realize, I asked Philip, there's only about a quarter of the members here are really members or residents of the Park Cities. So I think the other 3/4 are coming into the boundaries and showing your joyfulness and helping us running your wonderful parade for the benefit of us. It's really fantastic, and every year, I think it gets bigger and bigger. And you might have to have more members to keep running it. I don't know, you have to really work on your list, but I heard you do actually pick up a few memberships during the parade, so that's a wonderful thing as well. Your sponsorship does raise some money for the North Texas Food Bank, which is a wonderful thing. So it's a great process all the way around. There's a lot of winners in this, except some of you probably have to sit out in that 105-degree sun, and that's a pretty difficult job. I mean, even on the float, it gets a little warmer. We're being drugged down the streets, the hot paved streets. So hopefully we're going to try to make a deal with the Lord next year and keep the temperature around 95 degrees at a max and partly cloudy so we don't have to have the sun the whole time. But that's something I'm working on. I've also been praying for rain out in West Texas too, and he's just not delivering right now for me, but that's how he works in mysterious ways, correct? Yeah. All right. So we have a resolution here, resolution number 003-23, to present to the Rotary Club. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Highland Park, Texas, expressing thanks and gratitude to the Rotary Club of Park Cities. Whereas the Independence Day Parade and Festival has been an annual tradition in Highland Park and University Park since the early 1960s, and the Rotary Club of Park Cities has been the sole sponsor of the parade since 1993. And whereas the 4th of July event attracts large crowds of celebrants from the Park Cities and surrounding areas. And whereas since 2016, the North Texas Food Bank has been the parade beneficiary, and the parade sponsors have donated enough money to provide over 1.2 million meals for the North Texas Food Bank to serve deserving citizens. And whereas the Rotary Club of Park Cities is hereby commended for the club's excellent leadership, planning, execution of the parade, and its related activities held in Gore Park for 2 decades. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the town council of the town of Highland Park hereby express their thanks and gratitude to over 100 members of the Rotary Club of Park Cities who have spent thousands of hours planning and making the parade such a success for 20 years, with a special recognition to all of the men and women who proudly wore the beautiful shirts of the Rotary Club of Park Cities and who are seen everywhere giving a helping hand to ensure safe and successful parades and festivals. Passed and approved by the Town Council of Town of Highland Park, Texas on this first day of August 2023, and it's signed by myself, the town attorney, and the town secretary. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We greatly appreciate this, and thank everyone because this club does a great job, and we've got a great team here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now Eric Harrison will come up today to speak to the need for our foot care clinic coming up.
Good afternoon. If you are unaware, please put on your calendar September the 30th. We will be doing the second year, for the second time, our foot care clinic at the Austin Street Center. And we will hope to serve well over 150 people. This year we will have nurse volunteers. We have a source that is near and dear to my heart that is donating brand new shoes that we will be able to give to homeless people whose mode of transportation is their feet. If you are not able to be there on the 30th for some reason, please reach out. There was an email that went out this week from Holly Hollenbeck, and Holly is working like a Trojan to get this thing, and she did a great job last year. We're going to make it even bigger this year. Please reach out to Holly. There's a ton of work that needs to be done between now and September 30th, but would love to have as many of you there as possible on that Saturday, I believe it is. Yeah, Saturday the 30th of September, Austin Street Center. Be on the lookout, more emails coming, but it's a great program. If you weren't there last year, I promise you, go this year. It will put a smile on your face. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And Sarah and I are signed up because, again, I didn't go last year, but I'm looking forward to this year. I'd like to call now on President-elect Nolan Duck to speak to Legacy of Leadership in the upcoming cohort.
Thank you, President Jeff. As you might know, about 5 years ago, Cleve Clinton and Paul Pyrock came up with a fantastic idea. Because of all the things that we do in this club, all the different activities we're involved in, the leadership that we provide in so many different ways, they thought it might be a good idea if we had a course on leadership that was specifically suited for us. It's called Legacy of Leadership. And the next cohort is going to be starting on September the 26th. And you probably have been contacted by some of the previous members of Legacy of Leadership asking you to consider being a part of this cohort. 14 of you have responded and have already begun the process of signing up, but there's room for more. And so if you would like to be involved in this very meaningful time, and by the way, it's not really grooming you for leadership or where no one's going to twist your arm to take on a major role within the club, but it is an opportunity for you to understand what's going on in the club more specifically, where you'll be able to understand, okay, what is it that's going on with the different, well, the 4th of July parade, the food, the North Texas Food Bank. We can know more about the food care initial emphasis that we have. You know more about all of it, and as a result, you can be motivated to be a part of that. And then what's, I guess, the icing on the cake is the fact that you get to rub elbows with people that you see now once a week, possibly, if you're here. This gives you an opportunity to get to know a few more people more intimately, get to work as a team to accomplish something together. And it really is an important time where we can build relationships with others in this club that helps us become more effective and, to be honest, happier about being here. To be honest, you know, that's what the outcome is. We're proud of what we're doing. We're excited about what's happening. We understand how we can be involved, and we have some good friends that are in this with us, and we're moving in the right direction. So if you have not signed up for Legacy of Leadership, you have the opportunity to do that. You can go online, go to the website, and there's a place for you to fill out an application. The syllabus is there with all the different speakers that we have. It goes from September the 26th all the way. May is the end of this, but you're not meeting every month. You're meeting every 6 weeks or so. But it's a great opportunity. So I just want to encourage you to be a part of it and go and sign up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nolan. And again, if you have any interest in doing this, please consider it and reach out to Nolan because we'd love to have it on the next cohort. A few announcements. Again, August 19th is the Murder Mystery Dinner event that Happy has sent out details to. If any interest in that, please sign up. And then the 26th, we have the District Awards. So we have a good number of people from our club going to that at the Haggard Barn in Plano. And then Friday, September 1st, there's no meeting because of the Labor Day weekend. And now we're going to draw for the raffle, which a lot of us have already invested in today. So Steve, our speaker, Steve, if you could draw a number from this. And then hopefully, the last 4 digits. Here we go. The last 4 digits are 4213. Ah, Eric. You have a card? Guys, the deck keeps getting smaller because, again, if there's not the winning ace of spades pulled, it gets the card that is pulled gets taken out. So it's getting smaller and smaller. So hold on here.
Come on, Eric, win it. This one. Go, Eric. So close.
7 of spades. Odds keep getting better, guys. Thank you. So our program today is Steve Ladik. Steve's a friend of mine, and he's an attorney, and we go back a good number of years because we have a common interest in cycling, and a whole other part of his bio, he's a great cyclist and has done a wonderful job with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society over the years, far more than I've ever put into it. But Steve's emphasis is in immigration, and particularly he has a great experience in sports immigration. So if anyone you ever thought about coming over here and playing in the States, they have to go through a process, not just because they're a star, but there is a legal process. And so please welcome Steve Ladik.
Thank you, sir. That in there. So when and thank you for inviting me. I have spoken at the Addison Rotary, so I just have to keep moving and hit the whole circuit pretty soon. That could be my full-time job, just lunchtime speaker. When I usually speak to groups like this, I'm speaking to a bunch of lawyers, and believe me, with no offense to our lawyer back there, but or our former judge, but you don't want to hear that speech. Boring. So what I'm going to try to do is just keep it loose and anecdotal and tell some stories, how I got into this field,
some of the issues, crazy issues I've dealt with, foreign athletes getting into trouble, and not that they ever do that, but, and then I'd like to keep it open, so just feel free, raise your hand if you have questions. It's kind of an odd area of immigration, and you may not have even thought of it that much because we know what we hear on the news every day. So what's, any answer is right, but what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word immigration these days?
Illegal.
Exactly. But today we're not going to talk, and my wife came up with this line, we're not going to talk about buoys and borders. We're going to focus on immigration issues that confront professional athletes. And I think I want to start with, how did I get into this crazy field? Number one, it's kind of interesting, but it's also a life lesson. I have two stepkids who are in college now, and I think a lot of kids and your grandkids who went through the pandemic and remote schooling, and now they're finding themselves in college, and they have a lot of anxiety. They don't know what they're going to do, but they know they're supposed to be in college. So I tell them my story, and it's in a very roundabout way of how I got to stand here speaking to you. So I started out, interestingly, I was a biology major in Illinois. Then when I was 20, I said, I'm going to go to Texas and go to music school at UNT, or NTSU as it was called then. And I got to credit my stepdad. I never would have been this nice if my kid said he's going to go to Texas and study music. But he just says, okay, that's great, but just don't kid yourself. So, and I went, hey, Dad, don't worry, I got this down. I'm pretty talented. I can play Neil Young on the acoustic guitar, and little did I know what I was getting into. So I got down to Denton and went to school, did graduate, but realized the superstars there couldn't really make a living. And when I reviewed my own personal talent level, I suddenly, at age 28, had a revelation. Steve, I think you were kidding yourself. And I thought of my stepdad, but I never told him that. But then I thought, well, with lacking any talent, what else can I do? I'll go to law school. So I went to SMU Law School, and during school, I had a child already, and so I ended up getting a job with one of the early immigration lawyers back in the around 1982. And there weren't very many back then, but I needed money to support my family, and so I worked with him for half of my law school career. And then when I got out, he said, hey, will you stay and join me and help out? And so I did that. Then ultimately I got recruited to a large firm, Gardier and Wynn, which many of you are familiar with. And so here I am, like this third-year lawyer there, and one of the top partners in the firm represented Don Carter, who not only owned Home Interiors, but he also owned the Dallas Mavericks and the Dallas Sidekicks back then. So I get a call from like one of the top guys in the whole firm, and can you please come up to my office? And I'm like, oh God, what do I do now? And anyway, he said, listen, the Mavericks have just drafted Detlef Schrempf and Uwe Blab from Germany, and you're going to get the visas. And I said, okay, got it. Walked out, I thought, I have no idea how to do this. No clue, because it wasn't even like a business visa. Back then, they used a variation of what was called an H-1B visa, which engineers get these days, but they got one where you had to show they were prominent in their field. An side story, how a lot of the people I deal with in sports, it sounds derogatory, but frankly, a lot of pro athletes can be kind of prima donnas. And so we jumped through a bunch of hoops for those two German guys. And one day I get a call, back, receptionist, Steve, Uwe Blab's here to see you. And so I go, back then you had suit and tie every day to work, and I go out to the lobby, and those receptionist desks are probably like this high. Like if you walked up to it, or if I walked up to it, it'd be like here, and she's hiding behind it. Can I help you? And there's Uwe with his waist bent over this thing that's this high. He's 7'2", and he's wearing, in a big law firm, he's wearing like flip-flops and shorts. And so I had to take him to my office, and I was 5'8" then. I've been told now I've shrunk to 5'7", but at any rate, visualize 5'8" and 7'2". So I come out there, hey, Uwe, how are you? Hey, very good. And I felt like grabbing him, saying, follow the yellow brick road. We'll have to see the wizard. Anyway, he was a very nice guy, and took him to my office, and but he and Detlef got their visas approved, and so then the season's over, and they go home to Germany to spend the summer there. And I told them, now this is where you make an appointment with the U.S. Embassy, and you'll go in, and they'll put this visa in your passport for when you come back. Well, of course, they didn't have time to do that, so they just simply, at the end, when it was time for training camp, flew back on a visitor's visa. Were admitted, didn't tell me. Almost a year later, we're doing their green card. And you have to, when you convert to permanent residence, you have to show you've been legally abiding by the rules. And so it comes up that you guys have been illegally playing the whole season as visitors, which you're not allowed to do. You can't earn money as a visitor. And so I called the district director, hoping that, well, maybe because these guys are, big-time athletes for the Dallas Mavs. I called the district director. I said, hey, do you think you could retroactively, nunc pro tunc, change their status to this correct visa because they didn't realize what they had to do when they came in? He's like, Steve, this isn't like 2 weeks. This is like 8 months. They've been playing illegally in Dallas the whole time. So at any rate, the penalty for that was they had to go back to Germany for their final interview for the green card. Instead of having it at immigration here, they just went home and did it at the U.S. Embassy, and they were fine from that point on. So, but anyway, so at that time it was interesting, because this bleeds into kind of what I'm doing now. The Mavs had 4 foreign nationals in '87. Besides Shrimp and Blob, can anybody name any others they had? Well, but in '87. Yeah. So they had Roe Blackman, was from Panama. And for a while they had then Bill Winnington, who was a Canadian, who they'd gotten from the Bulls. But so back in '87, the Mavs had 4 international players, which was kind of a, it showed where the whole league was going and where everybody else ultimately followed them. So then I got a call from that same partner. He said, the sidekicks need you to get a visa for tattoo. And Kevin Smith and Beto and a bunch of the sidekicks. And luckily tattoo was closer to my height. But we did go down for his green card interview, and we get off the 6th floor of the Federal Building, and there's like this Channel 8 news crew with the camera and big TV lights, and I had my little briefcase and suit and tie, and we walked down the hall, and they're following us the whole way. And then, of course, some immigration knew we were coming, so some lady opens the door, welcomes us in, and of course, at that point, the camera's not allowed to come in, but it was on the news that night. It was kind of fun watching Tattoo and I walk in, and then they shut the door on the news crew. But so then, David Frost, you remember him, the golfer? Not the news, their TV show guy. David Frost was having problems with his immigration case, and his agent, a guy named Rocky Hambrick, I don't know if anybody knows him, but he was in Dallas, and he was actually the guy Jerry Maguire was modeled after. He was a consultant on the set, and he had done something similar to the story of Jerry Maguire. But So he calls Gordon Jago, the head of the Sidekicks, or the head coach, and he asks Gordon, David's case, he's having all these problems. What are we going to do to, do you know anybody that can help fix it? And Gordon's like, oh, call Steve Ladik, he's the best in town. So at any rate, I got to do all these Sidekicks cases, and David Frost's case, but because the individual athletes, you've only got an agent and an athlete. And basically, neither one of them want to know how this is done or anything about it. It's just make it happen. Whereas the team sports, as an aside, like a baseball team might have, 20, 30, Cubans, Venezuelans, Dominicans. They'll usually have, and the hockey teams, they'll have soccer teams, they'll have an in-house person, usually like an admin type, who just copies the visas from the last year and does the paperwork because they've already got the person's visa from the previous year. But the individuals don't know how to do it, and they started spreading my name through the whole PGA Tour until by the 90s, some point, the tour called me and said, can we use you as our official lawyer to refer all our new players who are getting status on the tour? And I said, like, sure. So right now, we probably represent, I bet you, 90% of the foreign golfers. My man Rory, by the way, is beating Scotty Scheffler now in the FedEx Cup, but there's still another tournament coming up, so maybe he'll, anyway. Scotty went to Highland Park, of course. So we probably represent maybe 50% of the LPGA players. And then I used to represent the NHL, and then they referred me to the NFL. And again, the NHL, it was fun. It was kind of a vanity client. It's fun to say, but they really had no cases because each team had a person in-house who was really doing the visas. And so I basically spent 10 years giving free legal advice over the phone. But at any rate, so I started doing, I worked for the Rangers just in the background if they had a problem case. There was these baseball players would get their they would go in the Dominican Republic, they would get their visas. And if they were drafted by an MLB team. And then suddenly the embassy noticed, this might have been 10 years, 15 years ago, that all these players were coming in and they had just gotten married like 2 weeks before the visa appointment. Because if you're married, you get the athlete visa, and then your wife gets, I'll just call it the wife or spouse of an athlete visa. But they noticed something was up. Finally, they got one of them to tell them, yeah, we're all being paid by, it was organized crime, to smuggle women into the U.S. for human trafficking. And so then they were all inadmissible to the U.S. You had to file for waivers. Now, I mean, the good thing was they were semi-VIPs, pro baseball. But they had to go to Washington and meet with the State Department's person who was in charge of human trafficking, enforcement and watching out for it. And then ultimately, the Rangers guys did get their waivers and came in. But so it just shows you, it's not just rubber stamping a visa for an athlete. They all have lots of other issues frequently. So then, as I said, I represented the Cowboys, the Rangers, and I ultimately, in the early 90s, for Daniel Negreanu. Does anybody know who he is? You guys are so well behaved. He's one of the best poker players in the world. But anyway, I was able, I think I was the first lawyer to do it, but I convinced immigration that poker is a sport. And by analogy, chess used to be in the Olympics, and so I made that argument, and it's not really a game of chance, it's a game of skill, and those guys will play, they'll play like 15 hours straight and have to go to bed and get up and play there's no way I could concentrate for that long. But at any rate, so I started doing all these poker player cases, and they get the same visa that Dirk had all the years. They had the same visa as a professional football player or basketball player or baseball. And then anyway, to wrap up the original story that I tell my kids when you don't know what you're going to do, as you could tell, I was weaving all over the map. In 2001, after 18 years in the field, I was elected president of all the immigration lawyers in the United States. And so that got me some instant credibility. It spread among the athletes, and if they looked me up on the web, at least it looked like, well, he must know what he's doing if his fellow lawyers elected him, which that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But so anyway, now the question is, why do athletes need visas? It seems kind of strange. For instance, would you think, before you came here and heard anything, but would you think somebody who's got an NBA MVP title, he's got a championship ring on his hand, why should he have to jump through all these hoops and get a visa? Because he's creating jobs here, he's entertaining the people of Dallas, for instance. He's helping a lot of people, and it's a positive thing for our country to get somebody that good over here. Well, the fact is, Dirk had to jump through all of those same hoops that any athlete did, and that 20 years before him, Detlef and Uwe had to jump through the same hoops. The difference is Dirk always followed the rules and did it the right way. So prior to 1990, again, like Uwe and Detlef, you got this H-1B visa, but in 1990 they created the Immigration Act of 1990, where they invented all these new entertainment visas, and one of them is a P1A visa, which is for professional athletes. And essentially, they can be sponsored by either an employer, which like in a team sport would be the team, because you have an employer-employee relationship, or they can be represented by a sponsoring organization. So like the golf tours don't employ the golfers, but they are just a sponsoring organization, or they can even have an agent file for them if it's a US-based agent. Most of us could meet the initial criteria probably for showing you're internationally recognized. You only have to show 2 of 7 categories of evidence. So think of a kid getting out of college. And a lot of foreign students go through this path. But you had to show, you have articles about you, you've won some awards, you have some expert opinions, basically friends who will write, he's really a great golfer. Let's see, awards. Oh, and one of them was you spent a prior year competing at a U.S. university. So not hard to get 2 of the 7 that they require. But then you also have to get a consultation from a labor organization, which says they have no objection to you coming over here. So for teams, that would be like the NFLPA or the NHL Players Association. For individual sports, there's no union or players association, so they would come, they would have just the tour does a no objection letter for them. You can get up to 5 years, but normally they won't give you more than your contract. And they want to see an itinerary, and they used to say, I want to see a 5-year itinerary. Well, we all know there's no sport anywhere that prints their schedules out for 5 years in advance. So now they accept finally, you can have a letter from the tour saying, here's our schedule this year. It repeats in substantially the same format every year, and they will approve a 5-year visa for a golfer. There's no grace period if you're terminated. So if like a baseball player is cut, they immediately become an undocumented alien, illegal. Although I heard somebody once said an illegal is a sick bird. But anyway, technically the correct term is undocumented. But now there is some exceptions. A major league sport, if you trade the player, the new team can't wait weeks while he's waiting to get his visa. So they say, as long as the new team will file for his P1 visa within 30 days, he can move to the new team and he can immediately start playing for them. So the biggest problem, though, they came up with, again, is even if you showed 2 of the 7 categories of evidence to show you're internationally recognized, they then have another regulation that it took them from 1990 to 2014 before one of their clever people, you know, sitting in one of these 4 regional centers, found this regulation that had existed since 1990 that says you must be internationally recognized, but you also must be coming to participate in distinguished events which require internationally recognized athletes. Now, it's the most bizarre regulation if you really analyze it, because there is no sport in the world that has a requirement to get on the team or play on the tour. You must first prove to us you're internationally recognized. I mean, sports, it's about talent. You get drafted or you make the PGA Tour. So they still, even though I had a letter from the head of the sports law program at Tulane University, I had a letter from the ATP, Association of Tennis Professionals. I had a letter from a professor of sports management at a major university, all saying nobody requires this. They refuse to recognize it, and so now you put it in the letter from the PGA Tour, and they say, well, we require internationally recognized athletes. And they go, okay, well, you said the magic words, you're approved. But they would never change their mind. I once had a young man, he was denied because he didn't show 2 of the 7 categories to show he was internationally recognized. And then out of the blue, we're strategizing how we're going to handle it. 2 weeks later, we get another letter about him from immigration. It says, we made a mistake. Apologize, so sorry. He actually is internationally recognized. But we're going to still deny the case, but we're going to deny it because the tour he's playing on does not require internationally recognized athletes. It's too low a level. So the good news is they do say you're internationally recognized. The bad news, they just issued a new denial with the other reasoning. But the fact is you've got to, you have to be at a level, and it seems like arbitrarily in golf, they'll go PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, PGA Latino America Tour, PGA Canada, which is actually going to switch next year. There'll be the PGA Americas Tour with Mexico and Canada. But at any rate, they'll say those are all fine, but any of these mini tours, we are not going to give you a visa. Even if you can show you are internationally recognized, this mini tour isn't distinguished, and it doesn't require internationally recognized athletes. The major league sports don't have a problem with that because, so for instance, if you're on a team major league sport of 10 or more teams with $10 million in revenue, that's why Major League Baseball, you can have all these levels of minor leagues, and yet they can still get P1 visas. So it doesn't apply to the team sports. Now, essential support visas that's a P1S visa. So think of a golfer and a caddy. If you're providing essential support to an athlete, you can get a P1S visa. It'll often, for instance, a lot of these Korean, very young women get on the LPGA, but you don't want to send your child halfway across the country, so the mother will become a tour manager and travel with her daughter while she's over here competing on the LPGA. And then in the major leagues, you don't have to support one athlete. So for all the NHL referees every year get the P1S support visa, even though they're generally supporting all of the P1 foreign players on all the different teams. Now, the craziest thing with that, a P1S story was there was a NFL team in a Latino market, and they wanted to attract more South American fans. So they had this crazy idea. We're going to go to South America. Every country we're going to go to, and we're going to interview cheerleaders down there. And then when they come up and are on our team, supporting that one P1 NFL player we have, they are going to attract fans in South America to watch on streaming services and to buy our merchandise. But the funniest thing was, none of them had been cheerleaders before. They had other talents. And when I got the resumes, this team and I were both laughing our tails off, but they had, basically, their resumes said, you know, champion pole dancer. and multiple of them were champion pole dancers. So anyway, this career I've had, getting to do all the sports things, it's allowed me and my wife, we've gone to the British Open last year. This was given to us, the Masters, we went, a player gave us. We went to last year to the, it was the Dinah Shore tournament, it's now the Anna Inspiration. LPGA let us walk right behind my clients up the middle of the fairways for the whole tournament. Been to PGA Championship, World Series, Wimbledon, Czech Open. Two of my tennis clients said, we'll tell them you're the coach. And I land in Prague, and there's a guy with my name, Mr. Ladik. Get in the car, Czech Open. I check in. There's Kafelnikov, and there's Rios in the 90s checking in to the hotel. And these young ladies come up to me, oh, Mr. Ladik, you're the coach, right? And I went, yes, I am. And so while the players would practice every morning, the tournament, I would get to go out with all the girlfriends on these walking tours of Prague. So it turned out to be an awesome trip and a fringe benefit to what I do for a living. But anyway, I hope that gives you an idea that you know, sports, just because you're a #1 athlete in the NBA, you still have to jump through a lot of hoops just to even get in the U.S. and play. So with that, I'll finish and just thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. That's great, and we really appreciate it. Very interesting. In honor of your speaking today, a book will be placed at McShann Elementary in your name.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
So next week, Larry Roberts will be speaking on artificial intelligence, and Mark Neese will be our chair of the day. And now Van Oliver will come up and do our four-way test.
Of all the things that think they are due, first is it the truth. Second, is it fair to all concerned. Third, will build goodwill and good friendships. Fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned.